Welcome to Sports Daily, Dave. Thanks for joining us ahead of EFC 51. Just briefly tell us who you are and how you got into mixed martial arts.
My name's Dave, the Pain Train Mazany. I got into mixed martial arts basically as a fan originally. I grew up watching the UFC. Back when we used to rent videotapes, there was a special interest section, and it had this weird thing with like, you know, the UFC and no holds barred, and like I grew up watching movies like Jean-Claude Van Damme movies. If you remember Bloodsport, yeah, so Bloodsport was like one of those movies where they mixed all these martial arts together and they all fought. And growing up as a kid, I always wondered like which martial art would win? Would a boxer beat a kickboxer? And how would a wrestler do? And so like there's movies about this, and then eventually somebody came up with the idea to like put it all together. And because there was always that question, like, what's the best way to fight? And just me as a person, I just was intrigued by it. And so I was a fan growing up of mixed martial arts. And it wasn't until after my collegiate athletic career, where I was a track and field athlete, that I decided to dabble into mixed martial arts. I studied it, like I would read books on technique and stuff, but I was really focused on my collegiate athletics. So once I graduated from college, I took my education and I worked construction because it made more money. Yeah. And then and I worked construction and I did a little substitute teaching. I coached and stuff like that. I coached ice hockey, track and field, and cross country running. But as I was doing that, I decided to start fighting just as a bucket list item. Like some people want to skydive, I was like, I want to get in a cage fight. And so I did it once, and then like a really powerful drug, it hooked me. Yeah. And I'm looking for the next high every time. So I'm trying to climb my way up different organizations to get to the point where, I still feel that rush.
I mean, you mentioned movies like Bloodsport where they combined all different martial arts, and then UFC 1 comes along and you've got a karate guy, you've got a boxer, all these guys in the mix. What was your thought when you first saw UFC 1?
When I first saw the UFC, I think I was like most people. I thought like a really fancy striking style would work because we watched Bruce Lee and all that stuff, and I'm like, what's on? You know what I mean? But then like immediately after I saw like Hoist Gracie wrap people up and take them down and strangle them, I realized that grappling is where things start. Like if a guy can't work off the ground, they aren't going to win. Like that's back when everything was pure. Now we got a very hybrid system to where like you learn how to work off of a wall when that might not be practical in the street. I mean, back then it was very practical, like which self-defense maneuvers, and so being athletic and being able to grapple was the best way to fight somebody. Now it's a hybrid thing. Like we have a fully different system than we did in 1993. Yeah.
You mentioned a hybrid system. What type of fighter are you, and what are your strengths and weaknesses?
So, I mean, I'm a fighter who was always evolving. Originally, I fought in Anchorage, Alaska, where I'm from, and I trained at a Gracie Baja Jiu-Jitsu gym, which they were the only Jiu-Jitsu gym in Anchorage at the time. And I basically looked at what I knew about MMA. I knew the grapplers were winning, and I went to the gym that was winning fights in town. And it was obviously the people who knew how to submit people. So I went to Gracie Baja and I got my purple belt under them, and that was like 8 years ago. I still have that purple belt. Maybe it was 7 years ago. I don't know, but I still have that purple belt with one stripe. I think I have one stripe. So my gi jiu-jitsu, it's still there. I can still like collar choke somebody, but again, I'm focusing on the pure MMA sport. I'm excited to get back to my gi jiu-jitsu because I love it. It's very fun, but it's a different game than what we do in the cage.
How important is it to evolve as a fighter, to be able to grapple, to be able to strike, to be able to wrestle?
So as I was saying before, like I try to be completely even. So basically what you do in a fight is you measure somebody up, you look at them fight, and I think you do this within a round. You can watch tape or whatever, but however the guy's reacting to you have a reaction. There's action, reaction. So when I study a guy, and I do this sparring, I do this all the time, you see where they're weak at. You see where when you're moving, you see how they're reacting to your movements. So if this guy's susceptible, say he's standing in a way that I can land leg kicks, I'd use my kickboxing to land leg kicks. Like if his hands are down, you know, use your boxing to you know, punch them in the face. Maybe their hands are too high and they're standing really tall, you wrestle them down. Depending on how they feel, you keep them there or you let them back up and go back to striking. So you want to have those options with, you know, any fight, you know.
Yeah,
like Mike Tyson says, you know, everybody has a game plan until they get punched in the face.
Yeah,
so I have my idea about what I'm going to do in this fight. But, you know, it could change. I have a really good corner guy, Dennis Davis from Extreme Couture, and in between rounds, we adjust. Or maybe in the middle of the round, we'll adjust to a different game plan because, you know, maybe he prepared, you know, my opponent has prepared differently. So having every tool like, kind of equal is very important nowadays. You rarely see the pure wrestler, the pure striker, or the pure whatever, like, be really successful in the sport.
You talk about adjusting in a fight depending on the opponent.
Yeah.
But obviously you're coming up against Leon Mynhardt, title fight, EFC 51. You have certainly prepared some kind of game plan for him, have you not?
Right, yeah, we have an idea, you know what I mean? I've done, but you know what, like, here's the thing, you know, we all kind of have our fights and our own tendencies, you know. Like, one of the biggest lessons I've learned in MMA was from, I don't know if you guys know Josh Barnett. Josh Barnett's mom was in the was in the gym one day where I was training in Seattle, and I was like, you know, for some reason had a conversation with Josh Barnett's mom, and she said, you know, one thing that Josh always does is he fights his fight. You know, he doesn't completely change his style to fight an individual. You know, there's adjustments, but like, you know, you're never going to see me fight like Anderson Silva. You're never going to see me be hands down, slick, throwing slick punches. I'm just not that type of person. You know what I mean? But you can make a lot of adjustments to where my fights will go different ways. You know, there's fights where I'll stand trade with somebody, and there's fights where I might take somebody down immediately. It just depends on what the guy's doing.
Touching on Anderson Silva, quickly just mentioned him. I fought this weekend,
Yes.
2 days notice. So what did you make of his fight? Even though he lost to Daniel Cormier.
Yeah, I mean, dude, it takes, I mean, especially guys in the UFC, they have like, guys like him, they have 8 weeks to prepare for a fight. Guys like me, I mean, until recently, I usually take fights on short notice because, you know, you just have to jump on any opportunity. But yeah, Anderson Silva had a lot of guts to come in and step in and you know, fight on short notice. I thought it was really cool. I mean, it's a good payday too. I mean, I'll fight tomorrow against anybody for $700,000 American dollars, but I think that's what I saw I got paid. So there's that too. But I mean, again, I don't know. Hats off to him, and you know, it was really cool of him to, you know, Cormier trained so hard for that fight. You know, like, and his emotions were up and down because John Jones messed up. And
what do you make of John Jones and the B sample, the A sample? What do you think about that?
You know, I think, you know, he's a guy that I don't think needs to take performance-enhancing drugs. He's got the genetics to where he's got, you know, siblings in the NFL, which the most athletic people in the United States are, you know, playing for millions of dollars in the NFL. So he's got, you know, genetics like that. And from what I've heard from people who train with him, is the guy picks things up really fast. He's got a lot of talent. He just got addiction issues, and I don't know if his confidence levels are so low he felt like he needed to take something. But you know, it's too bad that, you know, he got popped again for something on a drug test.
Okay. Let's move away. You're talking about UFC. Let's go back to EFC.
Yeah.
For you, how did you end up in EFC?
That's a funny story. So I was this kid from Alaska. I was coming off a 3-fight losing streak. My last loss coming from Ryan Ford, who was a really good welterweight in North America. He fought in Bellator. Could have got signed with UFC, but I believe he had visa issues and stuff, so they didn't want to sign him. But he's a top, big draw, huge draw. And we were fighting welterweight, and I was actually smaller then than I am now, fighting welterweight, because in Alaska we really didn't cut much weight. So I flew to Edmonton and I fought Ryan Ford. Ryan Ford came in, you know, like way heavier. You know, like he weighed in at the right weight, came in way heavier. He's a very experienced dude. Just lit me up, broke my orbital. I have a plate in my head, smashed my nose to like where bones are literally coming out of the bridge of my nose. And you know, I was like, a lot of money in debt. Like in America, our healthcare system sucks. We have a lot of great things, but our healthcare system sucks. I wasn't at a position where I had health insurance, so I had to pay for the surgery out of pocket. So after that, I just worked my ass off, long hours, working construction, digging ditches, doing my thing, to pay off that debt. And then I saved some money up. And at one point I got laid off, got some unemployment. I said, you know what, I'm going to Vegas. I'm going to do this fighting thing right. People thought I was crazy because the American economy was terrible.
Yeah.
There weren't jobs. This was like, 6-7 years ago. People were like, you're crazy. So I packed my pickup truck up, moved down to Vegas. I trained at Vanderlei Silva's camp. Again, the economy sucks, so things like fight promotions aren't blowing up around the place. So I'm trained up, I'm living off the savings, getting ready for a fight, but no fights are coming through. Pro fights in Vegas are very, very, very hard to find. We get a call because their EFC had some promotional deal with Vanderlei Silva. EFC called and said, hey, we need a guy to step in for Chris Bright to go against Wenzel Nil, our current champion, on 10 days notice at lightweight, and I think we went 5 pounds, like 2 kilos heavier than lightweight. We agreed on 160 pounds, which I don't know what that is in kilos, but it was, about 2 kilos heavier than, lightweight, because and that was my first weight cut. My first time fighting overseas, on a different continent, first time doing a weight cut, first time fighting with this team. I have this corner guy that I worked with a few times, Mike Smith, and it was just really foreign, but I needed to take something. And I went down there, and I ended up choking Wenzel Nil out in the first round. And again, it was one of those things that it was very, I don't want to say surprising because I trained my butt off, but come off of 3 losses, the fighter doesn't have confidence.
Yeah, of course.
And I felt it was amazing, and that kind of sparked my career and sort of got it going. Then it was the EFC Africa. They weren't worldwide, so it was kind of like a novelty fight.